class. Today's lesson is lesson 2.6, Algebraic Proofs. The learning objective for this video will be able to justify steps in an algebraic proof. Now I know that algebraic proofs sound scary, so we're going to start off taking it slow. All I want you to do is solve this equation, but for everything that you do to the equation, you have to give a reason for each step. So whenever we're starting out with proofs, anything that you're given, the reason is going to be given. I was given this equation, so my reason is that it was given. Now your first step in solving this is that you're going to want to subtract 4 from both sides. So that will give me 3n is equal to 38. My reason, or what I did, was that I subtracted 4 from both sides. You only need to write down subtraction, but I'm just telling you what I did over here. Next step to get n by itself would be to divide 3 from both sides. So my answer is n is equal to 38 divided by 3. I left this as a fraction because if you tried to enter this into your calculator, you would get a repeating decimal. So what did I do for that last step? I did division. I divided by 3 on both sides. Let's try another example. Our equation is 5 times x plus 3 equals negative 4. So my equation is just going to be given to me. The first step in solving this equation is that I need to get rid of these parentheses. So I'm going to distribute the 5 to the x and to the 3. That's going to give me 5x plus 15 is equal to negative 4. What did I do to get that answer? Well, I had to use the distributive property. Next step in solving this equation, I need to get rid of this positive 15, so I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides to get 5x is equal to negative 19. My reason for that was subtraction. And then finally, to solve for x, I need to divide by 5 on both sides, which is going to give me negative 3.8. Now you could leave it as a fraction of negative 19 over 5, but since this comes out to a clean decimal, that's why I wrote it as a decimal. So the last step was division. One final equation to start off with, I want you to try this one on your own. So pause the video and try it, then play the video to see if you got it correct. Alright, so for the answer, my equation was 2x minus 5 plus 2x is equal to 35. So that was my given equation. The first thing I have to do on this equation is combine like terms on the left-hand side. So 2x plus 2x is equal to 4x. So I combined like terms. Next step, I'm going to add 5 to both sides to give me 4x is equal to 40. So that was addition. And then the final step is to divide by 4 on both sides, which is going to give me x is equal to 10. So my last step used division. Now I'm not showing my math between each of these steps, like putting plus 5 and plus 5. But you should be doing that on your paper. It's just that it was hard for me to type up these equations and have all those little steps in between. Alright, so let's kick it up a notch. What looks different about this equation than the other equations? The first thing that I notice is that I have an x squared. Anytime you have an x squared as your highest degree, you're looking at a quadratic equation. So what goes along with quadratic equations? Well, there's the quadratic formula and there's factoring. So we're actually going to do a little bit of review of how to factor to solve this equation. So, first step that you need to do is you need to find two numbers that multiply to 2, your c value, and that are going to add to 3, your b value. Well, those numbers are going to be 1 and 2. So my factors are going to be x plus 1 and x plus 2. Since this is an equation, you need to make sure that you leave the equals to 0 onto the end. So what did I do for this step? I factored. Next step, I have factors, but I still need to solve. The way that you solve factors is you set them equal to 0. So I have x plus 1 is equal to 0, and x plus 2 is equal to 0. What did I do on this step? I solved my factors. And then finally, we want to get two different answers for x. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides on this equation and subtract 2 from both sides on this equation. So that's going to give me x is equal to -1 and x is equal to -2. So I use subtraction to get to that step. Now let's start putting these into proof form, which isn't very different than what we've been doing. An algebraic proof is going to have two columns. Remember, columns are up and down. The first column is going to be statements, and the second column is going to be reasons. For each proof, you will have a given statement and a proof statement. So in the ones that we've done up to this point, you only had a given statement. You're going to perform the necessary steps to arrive at your proof statement. Each time you perform a step, you must give a reason why. So just like what we were doing before. And then these reasons will go under the reasons column. You will always have the same amount of statements and reasons in your proof. Given will always be your first statement, and the proof statement will always be your last statement. So let's give it a try. If 5x plus 1 divided by 2 minus 8 is equal to 0, prove that x is equal to 3. So this is my given statement, and this is my proof statement. I'm going to set up two columns that say statements and reasons. Your first statement will always be your given statement, and your first reason will always be given. That's what was given to you. Now, I need to solve this equation and prove that x is equal to 3. So in order to solve this equation, I need to get x by itself. So the first step would be to add 8 to both sides, which would give me 5x plus 1 divided by 2 is equal to 8. So the reason I did that was the addition property. I had to add 8 on both sides. Next step, I'm dividing by 2, and I need to get rid of this 2 in the denominator. The opposite of division is multiplication, so I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. Whenever you multiply by 2 on the left-hand side, it's going to cancel out with that denominator. And when you multiply by 2 over here, you will get 16. So I'm left with 5x plus 1 is equal to 16. How did I arrive at this statement? Well, I multiplied. Notice that I'm putting property on the end of these, but for now, it would be completely acceptable if you had just written down addition and multiplication. Alright, still solving. My next step would be to subtract 1 from each side, which would give me 5x is equal to 15. So I had to use the subtraction property. And then finally, I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides and get x is equal to 3. That's the division property. So, now that I've arrived at my proof statement, x is equal to 3, I'm done with my proof. I want you to try this one on your own. You need to have a statements column and a reasons column, and you need to arrive at your proof statement that x is equal to -40. The next slide will only show the answer, so make sure you're trying this on your own. So here's your answer. Your first step would have been the given statement. Then you would need to multiply by 4 on both sides. So multiplication would be your second reason. You would need to subtract 8 from both sides because this is positive 8, which would be subtraction. And then finally you would divide by -3 on both sides, which would be division. This allows you to arrive at your proof statement of x is equal to -40. That's the end of this algebraic proof lesson. Please fill out your WSQ.